I guess.
Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show.
Or welcome to Consulting Leaders. Let's jump straight into it. You went from quitting your first sales job in an hour to leading sales team to tens of millions in annual recurring revenue. What pushed you, first of all, back into sales after that first experience, and how did you rebuild confidence?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. What pushed me back into sales was I couldn't get any other job. I had no any other. I couldn't get any other job, so that's what pushed me back into sales. I really had no choice, and I didn't go straight from quitting the job. I mean, not after a year from quitting the job to tech sales. I worked in marketing, so I avoided sales. I actually studied marketing and copywriting. That's what I wanted to do, like Mad Men advertising. So I worked for a travel agency doing all the marketing. And then I live in Miami, so everybody does real estate here. And so I figured maybe I should get my real estate license, and I wanted to go that direction and get into real estate development, acquisitions. So I ended up joining a brokerage here called Keller Williams, and they are very bullish on cold calling and door knocking, and they have strong training. And so I ended up just sort of falling into it. And I just decided whatever they tell me, that's what I'll do. And I did that for about a year. And then during my time at Keller Williams, I got a part-time job at Allstate Insurance doing cold calling. So I was cold calling for real estate, and I was cold calling in Allstate Insurance, and I was door knocking. I wasn't doing it alone. I had in real estate, I had a buddy of mine that joined the same brokerage, and he was as scared of cold calling as I was. And so misery loves company. We decided to partner up and cold call together. And, it was fun that way. That got me over my fear of sales. I wasn't successful in real estate for that year. But I definitely got over my fear of sales. Once I got over my fear of sales and I was actively looking for jobs in tech sales, I felt that tech was up and coming more than before. The wave SaaS was starting to rise. I was reading articles, I was keeping in touch, and I wanted to be in that boat. And then I found myself into tech. And I don't know if I answered the second part of your question, but definitely the first.
Oh, that's really good. I think the second part of the question was, how did you rebuild confidence? I think it's in the story.
Yeah, so there it is. That's how I did it. Cold call.
Exactly. So tell me, what's the okay, I'm not going to ask you the question like I usually do. How do you go from demo to sell and demo to close?
Well, it depends. So the whole idea of demo is it's a SaaS. It's in a SaaS environment, so you're selling software. How do you do it? There's a lot of ways you do it. It depends on where the lead is coming from. If it's inbound or outbound. If it's inbound, you are more entitled to ask more direct probing questions because they've raised their hands. They're coming to you. If you've booked the meeting from outbound, cold call, cold email, you have to prove yourself to the prospect in order to earn the right to do more. So it starts with proper discovery, but also being able to read the room. That's a big piece of it. Some people may have the right questions and you hear them, but they sound like robots. You feel and you see it. They don't have any chemistry with the prospect. They don't know how to read the room. They don't know how to be human. So the how to you go from a demo to close is starting with preparation, starting with your mindset, starting with discovery. Now, people think closing is a stage of a deal, it closing. And they're like, how do we close? Always be closing. What they make the mistake of is realizing that closing is the mistake is the truth is closing is not a stage. It's a result of. So closing is a result of proper discovery. Closing is a result of demonstrating how your product can solve their problems on the demo. It's a result of proper follow-up and multi-threading and staying top of mind and nurturing the prospect. Closing just happens when you've done everything right before that. It's just how it is. It's not an event that happens. It's a result of.
So what would you say is the core problem that you help solving in the B2B tech SaaS space?
The problem that I'm solving in the B2B tech space?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of problems, but one of the problems is for companies or sellers, they don't have enough coaching and training from their companies. A lot of them, their managers are very busy. They don't have the bandwidth to coach them. Maybe they meet with them once in a while, but they're high pressure, fast pace moving. So they're just seeing if they're hitting quota. They're not actually sitting with a rep based on their personality, and really getting into the weeds and making sure that they have their mind right. So working on their mindset, their belief systems, and then their skill sets. So the core issue is lack of coaching and enablement for sellers. That is from a B2B tech landscape. From an individual contributor problem. So in other words, if you're a seller at a company, the core problems that I'm seeing with the reps is they feel like they're on an island. They're on their own. They don't know what they don't know. They don't have process. They feel like they're drinking from a fire hose. They're second guessing themselves. They question whether they should even be in sales. So now you have a mixture of issues that has to do with mindset, identity, and belief. Then you have issues that have to do with actual skills. And they don't even know what they don't know. So they don't know if it's a belief system or it's a mindset issue or it's a skill issue. And my job is to help them find that path.
I like that. Who do you help specifically?
SMB and mid-market sellers or companies that have SMB and mid-market teams. SMB, small, medium-sized businesses. So these sellers or companies usually go after or have business. SMB means either size of the deal, so like the average amount of money that this customer would spend, average sales cycle, complexity of deal, and size of company. But generally, it's an SMB or mid-market AE, account executive. Recently been helping a lot more BDRs and SDRs with outbound because outbound's broken also. Very broken. They think that they need to, the name of the game is like get more bookings and pipeline. And so they try to automate everything and they miss out on the fundamentals of good prospecting, building familiarity, building trust, building relevance, the proper amount of personalization, sounding human. They miss that part, being able to think creatively, multi-channel. So that's SDR, BDR issues. Also AEs if you're a full cycle rep. So in other words, you're doing the outbound part of your job and the deal running and closing and the follow-up. And then I started recently working with account managers and customer success managers. And the reason why is the B2B landscape has changed a little bit. A lot of companies are letting go of a lot of positions and they're trying to do more with less people. And so they are anything that has to do with like expansion revenue or cross-selling. So expanding new features or products within the existing customer or trying to sell another product to another customer now is either falling on account executive or they're putting it on customer success managers that have no experience selling, or they're putting it on account managers, which is pretty common. And these people need help. So those are the problems that are happening on the individual contributor side.
Why do you focus on those specific businesses? I mean, you're in Miami, you could be training real estate reps, you could be helping mortgage reps, you could be helping, a gazillion other people. Why did you decide to focus on those SMBs, specifically the B2B tech space?
Yeah, the decision to focus there was because that's the world I came from. I was I was an individual contributor. So I was an SDR / account executive at these startups, was a VP of sales, built my sales team. So I was in the tech space for years. I joined companies at $0 million ARR as the first employee. 6 months later was VP of sales. We grew it to over 6-7 million in of 3.5, 4 years. Joined another one. It was doing about 1.4 million ARR. About 18 months later, they're doing about 5 million ARR. And so that's just the space that I was in. And so when I started my business, the easiest way to start a business, in my opinion, is to look at the most like your inner like circle. Like, what do you know well? What do you do already? Can you build a business out of that? The advice that I give on, let's say, LinkedIn or even YouTube, sometimes I get leads from YouTube. I'm seeing people that are in the non-tech space that are reaching out and asking for coaching. I've coached marketing agencies that sell SEO services, and I've helped them a lot. And so that's because the stuff that I teach is about human behavior and communication psychology. It just happens to be that it's wrapped in a B2B tech space. But the decision was because I was in the space already.
So you're extremely visible online, I think is the least we can say. What channels consistently bring you leads? Like how do you market and brand yourself, and what is working the best for you more?
LinkedIn is my number one channel, but that's also because I'm putting all of my focus on LinkedIn. So it's very obvious. Wherever your attention goes, energy flows, and that's how it is. At some point, I was putting up videos on YouTube, on TikTok and Instagram, but YouTube started becoming a channel at some point. But I've slowed down creating content there. I've sort of paused on it for now. I have a newsletter. And then I had a podcast for quite some time that was doing very well. One of the top SaaS sales podcasts, and I was getting leads from there. But all of this requires a lot of bandwidth and delegation. And for now, I'm a one-man show. So I decided, let me cut out. Sometimes in order to grow, it's not to do more, it's to do less. So what I ended up saying to myself is, all right, I'm going to focus purely on LinkedIn, one channel, and I'm going to try to create content that no one's creating. So if I'm going to give advice, I'm going to give advice of the type of advice that nobody's creating, which you're seeing. Like I create a lot of videos, but my content on LinkedIn are like a micro course. It's so good it could be paid for, and that's the intention. So LinkedIn number one channel. What's working is my intention behind the creation of the content is I want it to be so good that people feel like they could have paid for it.
So that's number one. Tell me a bit more about how, so I'm asking you because I think this is going to be super valuable for B2B coaches and consultants looking at the right channel to focus on. I have a lot to say about YouTube and podcast, obviously, but I want to talk about what's been working for you. So extreme focus there. What do you mean with that? The LinkedIn game is very, very specific. It doesn't have a built-in growth algorithm like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts would have. It's not just about the great content, in my experience. But I want to get yours. So how do you make LinkedIn work for consulting businesses?
Without going too in the weeds, because it would take us 3 hours to cover this, it's a mixture of content creation. I would say that's the least leverage part of LinkedIn. The most leverage is what you do with. Think of what LinkedIn is. It's a networking website, and because it's a network, the name networking tells you what you need to do. Network. So the way I do it is I spend a lot of time engaging on LinkedIn. So the post you see is like the tip of the iceberg. I'm spending most of the time on LinkedIn, DMing people, commenting on people's profiles on their content. Those two things, like that is like the bottom part of the iceberg. So I remember somebody when I first started with LinkedIn, there's this guy, I forgot his name, Michael something. He was, I don't know how many followers he had at the time, and I really cared about followers back in the day. Now I care less about it because I just care that the followers that I do have are my right audience. That's more important than having hundreds of thousands of followers. It's having less of that, but most of the people are your right audience. And this person told me, if you had an hour to dedicate a day on LinkedIn, my recommendation for you more would be 45 minutes engaging with people's content and in the DMs, and 15 minutes creating content. And I took it to heart. Ever since that's what I've been doing. And I do it in a very systematic approach. I have spreadsheets that I follow. I have KPIs that I follow. Every day I go in on LinkedIn, I block out 2 hours of my day. I have to DM a certain amount of people. I engage with certain people's profiles. I comment within the comments in other people's profiles. I'm like, and that's why you probably see me often on LinkedIn. It's you're seeing my comments, and if you like my comment, somebody that follows you will see that you like my comment, and that's just that's how it grows. So I do that. Imagine you're doing that. You're commenting on 10 to 20 people's profiles, your ICPs, a day for 365 days a week, a year. I'm not doing it 365 days a year, but I'm doing it majority of the year for 2-3 years. I mean, it compounds like crazy.
So this is gold, and I want to double down on it. So too many B2B coaches and consultants are like, oh yeah, no, I'm super active on LinkedIn. I post there twice a week. I'm like, great. How many people do you visit the profiles of? How many people do you comment on the post of each and every day? How many people do you DM based on Sales Navigator, your ICP, the list that you've built, but also people interacting with your post, interacting with your profile? And this is where flatline, nothing happens. I think you nailed it, and obviously you're doing great on LinkedIn. It's not a followers game anymore. First of all, like you can have, I know people who have hundreds of thousands of followers, 0 engagements. So it's great. It's a nice ego stroke. And when people visit your profile for the first time, if they are not educated, it's like, oh, this person is big time. So what actually matters is how much business you get out of this. And the business comes from DMing people the proper way, because they've engaged with you, you engage with them, you created a relationship, you've networked with them, and you've made that machine work for a long time. It is a multi-year play. How do you take people from, okay, awareness, right? They are problem aware, solution aware. You've interacted with them on LinkedIn. How do you get them from that to deal closed? I think for you, it's going to be particularly interesting. What does the sales motion look like in Mor's world?
Well, a lot of them come from a lot of people that come through have been following my content for years. That's what I'm saying. You have to play the long game. Some people have just recently stumbled upon it. Some people found my podcast from a year ago or 2 years ago. And then that podcast leads them down the journey of, oh, here's LinkedIn. Let me go through the journey of LinkedIn. Then they subscribe to my newsletter. A lot of my posts also have a call to action where I give away a free resource, like a lead magnet. And they download the lead magnet. When they download the lead magnet, on the thank you page, it has like either I used to have a course upsell, but now I have like book a meeting with me. And so my whole theory is if I give highest quality content up front for free, then the natural reaction is, wow, this is so good. What else does he give? And on that post that I've just given high quality content, I have a little resource for free. I'm likely going to get people to subscribe to it. When they subscribe to it, and then there's a calendar, they've just gotten a hit of value from me that immediately they're prompted with book a call with me. And so a lot of them are coming through my calendar, through my content. And then I have a discovery call with them. And for some deals, it's a one call close. For some, it's a little longer. I'll eventually create more systems in place to filter that out. But it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's either 1 or 2 calls and I close them. Those 1 or 2 calls can happen within a range of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes like 2 months, 3 months. Sometimes reps like salespeople that I speak to that need help. It happens every week. They need a lot of help. They haven't hit quota, but they're not going to invest in themselves because they just bought a house or they're doing renovations. Stupidity. Like, that's stupid. You are not hitting your quota and you've put $30,000 into a renovation of a house that won't even bring you a single dollar in return per month. Like, there is no ROI from that except immediate gratification of I've renovated my house. That's it. So those ones come back later on when they realize they made a dumb mistake. So
that's an interesting one. And that's getting a bit outside of consulting business, but I think it's a super important one. How do you handle I just made another big commitment objection?
Well, it depends on the commitment.
Well, I've just put $35,000 in renovating my house. I don't have $15,000 to invest in your program.
I mean, I'll try to find the real, I'll go through an objection handling process of trying to really uncover the motivation from them. And I'll try to like show it back to them like, hey, you're not hitting pipeline and you're dealing with this and that. And here's the reason why you originally reached out. like, are you open to other ideas if we can make it happen? And then I try to maybe do a payment breakdown. If that doesn't work, it's like, no, I'm just not going to do it. I don't want a customer like that. Before I wanted any customer. But I've realized that what is meant for me, for my business, will find me. Like, I don't need to chase. Once you chase, people run away. There's a difference between chasing and following up. So I stopped chasing. I do follow up, but I don't chase anymore. If I need to convince somebody that they have an issue that they're aware of, but they need to fix it, it's probably not the right customer for me. And it usually isn't. Like, I also won't invest in a customer. Like, I have salespeople that come to me and they say, I have to see if my company will pay for this, stipend this. And my question is to them afterwards, if they don't, will you do this yourself? And they say no. They're like, I'm probably not a fit for you. If you're not willing to put money in yourself, I'm not willing to put time into you either. So, and then I feel very at peace with it.
Again, a lot of nuggets of knowledge that I want to double down on here more. So I like at first I would take anybody. So the expression, the saying that I like is anybody with a pulse and a credit card. Pulse is optional, but eventually you find your market fit, and you also understand that people who are going to get results out of your services and your program anyways are people who are ready to invest and like do that commitment by themselves.
In the early days, you might have to just take on anyone you can get, and that's what I was doing because you need to survive, and that's fine. But be ready to transition out of that.
Need to put foot on the table. 100% agreed. So an important nuance here that you mentioned that I want to hear more from. How do you follow up instead of chasing?
I add them to my newsletter. So when somebody comes through, they usually come through because of my newsletter or my lead magnet. So they're automatically put on my newsletter. And so I make sure that my newsletter is high quality. So they're already getting an automatic follow-up every week from me. May not be personalized to them, but it's personal. It's relevant to their situation because I cover the stuff. My newsletter talks about the topics that they deal with. That's one way. The other way is I engage. I add them to LinkedIn Sales Navigator. And if I see they create content, I will engage in their content. That's a way for me to stay top of mind. My definition of follow-up is staying top of mind. I don't need to remind them, hey, by the way, my name is Mor. We spoke. Do you want to do coaching? If they see my name on their comment, on their post, like it'll trigger a memory of like who I am. So you have that plus my newsletter. That's enough. Sometimes I'll send them a random email like, hey, it's been a while since we spoke. Is it something that like is completely off the table, or are you open to it? If not, if I don't hear a response back in like 3 days, I'll close this out. And then I move on. I'm not giving my like I'm not selling for at least individual contributors. My programs aren't even like $100,000 or $30,000. My programs for individual contributors at the highest point is maybe like shy of 18K, but they can make payment plans. The lowest is like 5K. So most of them are on like the 5-6K plan, and it's doable. Like there's payment plans. I'm not going to treat them like it's a $30,000 deal. I'm just not going to. It's just a waste of my time. For my B2B clients, where the deals are like 100K, 120K, 175K, I'm playing the long game. I'm nurturing. It's a completely different game than I'm playing.
So most of the audience will be more B2B, right? B2B coaches and consultants. One thing I'd say, I think that's back to the point around the newsletter, value instead of, hey, when do we start? And actually, I'm guilty of this myself sometimes. Just like literally half an hour ago, a deal closed. So it's been a lady, think top 3 CRM in the world, been chasing for weeks. Hey, when do we start? Any feedback? Any news? Why it's taking so long whatsoever? Today, this morning, I just sent a case study. I was like, hey, here is a case study very similar to yours. This is where they were before they started with us. This is where you are. Here is what we did. Here is how we got them results. Literally received the payment like half an hour ago. Think about follow-up in the sense of providing value and showing why it's the right reason rather than trying to push. Still guilty of this myself sometimes, but that does work.
Yeah, that's because we're attached too much to the outcome. We think we want to be in control, and so because we want to be in control, we and we're stressed or whatever it is, we transfer that pressure to our messaging to the prospect, and they feel it, and we push them away. Anytime I ask this to a lot of salespeople when they're like trying to close a deal for the end of the month. I'm like, raise your hand. I did this last week. I'm like, raise your hand here if the majority of the deals that you close come from you chasing and pressuring the prospect, and none of them raise your hand. I'm like, so then why the hell are you doing it? I'm like, it's obviously not working. The only reason why you're doing it is because you have a sense of control. That's the truth.
Very good. It's very good. It's back to the ego play versus what's actually going to get you the results play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because you're servicing individuals and companies as well. So I guess more for the B2B side of things, how do you typically retain more? The reason I'm asking this is when I was a consultant myself at PwC, the partner who kind of taught me everything was like, Guillaume, there are two types of consultants. There are the hunters and the farmers. And he was like, I'm a hunter. I love the smell of fresh blood in the morning. I love to go after new business. Going after new business, that's my job. And it was like, but the partners growing the fastest, the ones bringing the most money in, are actually the ones who are able to take that initial engagement, over-deliver, and transform it into a multi-layered, multi-year projects feeding other teams from PwC. Like those are the ones who make the most money. I kind of imagine which category you fall in more just by the nature of your very business. But once you get that engagement, how do you retain that client? How do you double down? How do you keep on bringing value? How do you keep on billing as well so that it's a win-win partnership? How do you?
Yeah. I mean, most of my contracts for B2B clients are at minimum 6 months. Some of them are 12 months. Some of them are 3 months, and they've extended for another 6 months. I wouldn't say that's the strongest suit of my business process. I think it comes down to bandwidth. I'm flying on. I don't have any other consultants that can do that extra nurturing. And the nature of my engagement is that I come in to, it's like you hire a coach or a trainer for the gym to get a certain look for a competition. At some point, you might not need them anymore or as much. So that's sort of the nature of the consulting industry, at least in the sales coaching consulting arena. But I've started thinking about ways to create a more scalable version where it's ongoing business, because again, my contract sizes are large and I'm not going after public companies. I'm going after Series A, B, C startups. Yeah. So they have limited budgets. So they, for a long term, I think to spend money on, and also I have certain deliverables like building out a sales playbook. So I can't build out a sales playbook for 2 years. But there are ways where I've adjusted the business to offer a much shorter option or a shorter version of what I do. I have ideas of creating a Mor AI where they have like a digital coach that I'll sell to them like a service, like a SaaS, like they can subscribe to and give it to their reps for $100 a month, whatever it is. So there's a lot of ideas in play. In the last, I would say 12 months, I've been more focused on bringing on or building out more of the B2C side of my business, because the B2C side has community and that's recurring, and that's a more scalable model in my opinion. B2B is a lot harder to scale in the consulting space.
Would agree with that. What's so I think you've nailed your avatar. You have a great product, one channel. I like that a lot. Deep focus. What's something that's challenging you more? Like, what would you say is a nut that's is a bit tough to crack, but once you're gonna crack it, you're gonna take the whole business to the next level? What would that be for you?
Probably delegation at this point. To hire eventually. It's like right around, it's just it's part of my LinkedIn strategy is being very active on LinkedIn, and then creating the content, and then managing, and then servicing the business, and then working on the business, and having time to think about ideas for the business. And I'm limited with my time and bandwidth. So the next obvious hurdle or step level I have to go into is hiring some type of employee. I don't know what that would look like yet. I have ideas, but that's where I'm spending my time now.
Like that. What's the so a bit in the same vein? What's the next big thing for you? 3 to 6 months. What is it that you're looking forward to? What is it that
Somebody, I'd hire somebody to help me out, to delegate work to. That would free up a lot of my time to focus more on big vision ideas for the business. I have a big project to codify my sales methodology. Okay. That's a big project. Creating like a more AI, at least a version 1 of it, so people can communicate with me at scale. Creating more, not more my name, like MORE, GPTs for my sales community. So like GPTs based on my methodology. Those are 3 to 4 big pillars that I'm going to work on the next 3 to 12 months.
Like that.
Maybe, and then once I have my time back, then I can focus on creating YouTube content, Instagram, and then hiring people to do videography there. There's a lot to work on.
100%. More, ladies and gentlemen, more. If people want to find out more, MORE, about you, where should they go?
They can go to LinkedIn, or they can if you are my ICP, then you can go to Demo to Close. If you're not my ICP, which is like SaaS, but you do need sales help, eventually I will expand out of SaaS, but SaaS just is working right now. Then you can go to demotoclose.com.
Join the newsletter. It's a good one. We'll put all the links in the description. What I can say for sure more is that you've gained at least 1 connection out of this on LinkedIn. Me, I just added you. Mor, thank you so much for coming on Consulting Leaders.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.